All right, well, thanks very much. I guess I'm about the only thing between you and lunch, so I'll try to go quickly. I like going last, or almost next to last, because you build up presentations of those who've gone before, and I know better than this is the last slide you'll see with pictures in it, because I knew that the UC guys were going to be able to outpicture me anyway. But a couple of things. First, I want to reiterate what Dwayne said in his opening comments. One of the big take-home messages from this is not just the continuing education credits and the chance to learn something, but is to be able to come together and figure out a plan of action, create some stakeholders. That's what this issue needs. It needs people to be concerned about it, to convey their concern to their elected officials, because to do anything in this world takes money. And also to be part of a plan. Okay, so those are the two main things I want to mention about Dwayne's comment. John comments. I was on a Delta flight last week, and in Friday magazine there was an article about spooky things to eat because it's Halloween. And I don't know if you know Andrew Zimmer. He's a bizarre food show on the Travel Channel. He's running through his top 5 list of spooky things to eat. Number 1 on the list was the red palm weevil. And he went on to lament that sadly it's not established in the United States. Fresh source of that tasty treat. According to the Secretary of Agriculture, I said, local fresh fruit is great, but some things should just not be. So Mark, because Mark's got some street credibility on this, we got the YouTube video of him eating the red palm weevil. Said we need to get Andrew on board with the basic species and knowledgeable food and try to make something out of it. He's got a big fan base, so maybe we can get to use his celebrity and Mark's celebrity to elevate this issue. The other thing was in John's presentation, trip down memory lane about our success in Laguna Beach and the different ways people react to UC or state orders. And so from here on out, I'm going to refer to myself as a member of the University of California Department of Food and Agriculture. Take advantage of all the positive reactions, no matter which way you go. So response options. Here's a whole list of the typical responses, regulatory responses for the introduction of new invasive species. Detection, eradication, quarantine, research. Identification is what I left out. I kind of put that under research for this one. This is basically all the elements of our state pest prevention system that we use and roll out in cooperation with the in cooperation with the USDA and county ag commissioners and the UC. And so my talk today will sort of hit on the details of each of these response options. First and foremost, if we're not able to sweet talk people out of their trees, any programmatic response that CDFA is involved in has to have CEQA compliance unless it's an emergency. An emergency under CEQA is a sudden unforeseen occurrence of something. We have a program environmental impact report that's 2 years old, and any action, whether it's detection activities, treatment activities, foraging activities, has to be analyzed under the PEIR before we can engage in it. Analyzing things under PEIR or adding them to the PEIR is certainly an expensive and time-consuming endeavor, but that's just one of the things that is obligated for us to do before we initiate any official state action. Detection. Okay. Jason went through issues with visual survey. So one of the strong points that came out today is citizen science. Mark's already got a website up and going. We've got a lot of arborists in the room. You're actually one cut above the average citizen when you're talking about citizen scientists because you have an advanced base level understanding of what unusual symptoms on palm trees should look like. But that's a great thing. And we need to build on that, but we need to be cognizant when we're out doing citizen scientists, how can that feed into a potential regulatory program? Because For us to take an action, either an eradication action or a quarantine action, it has to be an officially collected sample. It doesn't mean that we couldn't go back out and re-verify a sample that an arborist reported to Mark's website, but we can't just take action on public reports, but we can respond to them and collect official samples. So building off of the hundreds of eyeballs that were educated and hopefully thousands more out there with what private entities can do and pair up with what the government can do. So Jason ran through what our sort of our visual survey. It's looking for signs of infestation, the telltale visual signs. Trapping can also help you confirm the presence in the area, and that's enough to justify initiating a quarantine in the area. But confirmation of an infested tree, actually finding the live life stage in the tree, it would be an absolute precursor to any kind of eradicated or abatement action. You have to have a live life stage in that actual tree. One of the other issues here is that procuring that live life sample is a very invasive procedure. You have to basically cut a notch into that tree and damage its aesthetic appeal. So that's another consideration as well. So these are some of the issues associated with detection. As Dr. Nutters mentioned, we have applied for farm bill funding to restart our trapping program. Eradication. John kind of alluded to the fact that this situation is a little bit different than the defined and isolated infestation that we had in the Blue Beach, which you can sort of get your hands around and attack it from one direction. We have a different situation here. You know, in my mind, really the only way eradication will be possible is after the beetle's eaten all the host material 30 miles south of the border through Mexico, and if we're able to bottle it up from going north, then we can push it back, and maybe then eradication will be possible, presuming people don't continue to bring host material into Tijuana. But that would be the criteria. So like a host-free zone, is that really possible with palm trees? I don't know. In an area like this where we're going to go this afternoon and see them growing naturally in the environment. Infested tree versus at-risk trees. We can only take action, and this would be tree removal or treatment, on a known infested tree, and not the tree immediately adjacent to it without proof that that tree was infested as well. Especially if it's an abatement action to take the tree or remove the tree. So that is also a very important aspect of tree removal versus treatment. One is obviously taking the personal property, and it usually has to be done with a warrant process. We get a warrant from a magistrate and compel people, unless they voluntarily give up their tree, as they did for John and Mark in Newton Beach. But there's a whole list of due process requirements that we have to go through before we're able to take somebody's property. And any eradication program also has a quarantine component that goes along with it, because you really can't expect to be able to eradicate something if you're not controlling the artificial movement of the host and its potential vectors out of the area. So those two really always kind of go hand in hand. So speaking of quarantine, when we thought we might have to have a quarantine for the red palm weevil in Lagoon Beach, the USDA and their technical working group had prepared a draft quarantine regulation. And we were one beetle away from triggering a quarantine, and thank goodness we didn't get that last beetle. So the draft quarantine was based upon red palm weevil biology, but there are some similarities between red palm weevil and South American palm weevil. But as is pointed out throughout the day, there's a lot of things we don't know about how South American palm weevil will work in this sort of new northern environment. But that quarantine was going to be based upon triple the known adult flight distance for the red palm weevil, which at that time was 6.2 miles, but when you strap the whirly gig, maybe we go a little bit further. So maybe that needs to go on the how far can a South American palm weevil fly? The major things that quarantine would have regulated was nursery stock of hosts and that was field dump trees as well as containerized trees. And the biologically sound mitigations that the USDA or technical working group came up with were that those trees had to be enclosed, either in an insect-proof greenhouse or some kind of netting structure for a year, so that enough life cycles people could go by to verify that it wasn't hiding in there, and it had to be subjected to an approved treatment. We never got to the point with the USDA of defining what that approved treatment would be, so we didn't really ever have to define it. Those were some of the main issues when we circulated that draft quarantine. We got a lot of comments back, and those were some of the main issues about the practicality of doing that. But once again, it was a biologically sound set of mitigations. User-friendly? Probably not, but that any kind of quarantine going forward now, since it's probably not an emergency situation, we have to hold scoping hearings and take public input and things like that before we implement it through regular rulemaking, which takes about 6 months. The other major regulated article would be green waste of hosts, so palm fronds, palm trimmings, things like that. Those would all have to be disposed of according to safe methods. Debarrel or landfill, shipping and grinding, solarization, composting for a certain number of days. All of the green waste that's most palm would be highly regulated throughout the entire regulated area. And he mentioned the 6.2 radius around each detection goes around each detection, so that could be a much larger area if you have several detections in an area. So these are just some of the things to be thinking about when we're looking at all the different response options that are coming together with what kind of plan works for the situation we have and whatever funding we're able to get for this. These are some of the things we need to be considering. The other component here is control. You know, maybe there's a leading edge that we can articulate through trapping and citizen scientist observations that can be called upon to let us know where the beetle is and where, and more importantly, where it isn't, and focus efforts there. You know, biocontrol, I don't know if we've got that on the board yet, but that obviously needs to go out there. This particular bug hasn't really become invasive anywhere in the world. It's just slowly marching north, north, north. And because of that, it doesn't seem like anybody has really had the opportunity to go out and find biocontrol agents in its native habitat. Is typically one of the first things you do when a bug lands in a new spot, is you start researching what are the native species in its native range that can control it. So there's probably a lot of work on biocontrol agents that needs to happen. Because if we're going to have maybe a control program to slow down the spread or roll it back, biocontrol is obviously a very user-friendly, publicly acceptable sort of fire and forget type of control method. Protecting a specific area. In lieu of a quarantine around the infestation where everything moving out of that has to be regulated, there's another concept about protecting a specific area. We actually have that concept in play for the date palm industry, for our date palm disease quarantine, which basically protects the date palm production areas in California from the artificial movement of any Phoenix species tree into Coachella Valley and Imperial and Barn Haven area. Those host material can move freely in other parts of the state that are infested, but they just can't go into that very vulnerable area that needs extra protection. So that's another control concept as well. Sort of a quasi-quarantine concept, but I think it fits better under control. I threw this one up there, sterile insect technique. That's where you sterilize insects to breed with wild insects and cause sterile young. I don't know that that's ever really been done for a coleopterous insect before. It's very common with fruit flies and with moths, but that's another one. One I didn't put up here, which Mark is actually doing, is mass trapping. If you pull enough adults out of the population and reduce the breeding population, that can work as long as you're not shoving them into a new area. So these are some of the common control options that we maybe need to think about. Outreach.
Well, here we are today. This is the start of our outreach. Obviously, the tree care industry, you're going to go out, you're going to talk to your clients, you're going to educate your clients about, there's this new bug potentially coming our way. You spend a lot of money on me keeping your asset, your palm tree, alive. You need to be aware of this. It's not just the people in the room today, but it's the people who, pay you money. It's the land managers, homeowners association, property management. And as we move forward, when we had our diapreppy root weevil quarantine and eradication program in San Diego and Orange County, one of the more effective tools we had was a direct mail postcard that we'd send out to locations where we thought it's highly likely the bug is there. And you get this beautiful postcard in the mail. It's beautiful if you think bugs are beautiful. But it gets people's attention and educates them. And maybe that's something we can do in areas where we have found beetles or potentially highly susceptible to get people to understand and be on the lookout for these bugs. So there's a lot of outreach opportunities. As we go forward, figuring out our plan, we need to be thinking about all these things, other ideas as well. These are just some things that we've come up with throughout other programs. And research. Obviously, research has come up a lot today. Biocontrol research, research on additional lures, research on treatments and application methods. There was talk of using drones to apply the preventative treatment from the top of the tree down. Early on, maybe those were just idle whimsy, but these are logistical issues when you're trying to protect a tree that's got a difficult canopy to reach and is way up off the ground. Once again, sterile insect technique. Don't know if that's too practical, but it's something to think about. And non-invasive detection methods. To actually physically prove that the tree is infested, like I said, you got to cut a notch in, you got to get in there, you got to stick your arm in, you got to pull out a weevil. Well, there may be novel methods where if you can't grab a grub out of the tree and you can get some of the frass, maybe you can detect the DNA of the bug there. That's evidence enough that the bug's been there, and it's proof enough that that tree should be considered infested, or at least was infested with beetles in the area. So these are some of the research things that I think we need to be thinking about as we move forward through, figure out what it is we can do, what we want to do, what we think we can be effective at advocating for and implementing. And I think that is the end of I told you I'd get us to lunch or get us at least to the outreach section quickly. So, have any questions?
Is this a quarantine area right now?
It is not a quarantine area. We do not have a quarantine effect. The USDA decided, as Dr. Leathers mentioned, that because the beetles appears to be coming across the border, that it's not going to be a quarantine pest for them unless the nematode is found. So, but if the nematode is found and the vector is not a regulator, I'm not sure how that would work. But for us to consider quarantine, there's lots of things to consider.
Any known predators?
The question is, any known predators? Where is Mark? Is he out front? Okay. Yeah, Mark's a predator. Anybody who's hungry is a predator of the larvae. Andrew Zimmer's a predator. But not known, but I think that's because it hasn't become invasive anywhere. And nobody's gone back to its native range to look for those native predators that they can then bring to their discrete infestation and rear up and turn them loose.
Is it always fatal, or can they hit a tree and then move on?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, it becomes more fatal if the nematode is introduced, because then the nematode and the bug can team up to kill it. But there's things we just don't know, is if it's always fatal. If it's successful, it'll be fatal. It'll consume the entire host before it moves on. But do we know if the climate in the wintertime impacts its ability to complete its life cycle, and therefore the infestation of a tree dies out over time? These are all really good fundamental basic biology questions. Yes, sir.
How close to where we currently are has the nematode been detected?
You know, Jason? No, don't know that one. For the basic biology. And I don't know if there's, you know, it's where it's been detected, but where it's actually actively been looked for. Just two different things, and actively looked for really tells you with some more veracity if it's there or not. If it's been detected, it could just be somebody just happened to report it. That doesn't always happen.
Is the CDFA cooperating with Mexico? Is there any kind of program?
We have not engaged Mexico yet. We probably have to work through USDA to do that. Mexico, when the USDA did their risk assessment on South American palm weevil, they concluded, and they asked Mexico, are you going to do anything about this? And Mexico's answer was, we haven't yet, and now it's all the way through our country, so we're probably not going to start now. But that doesn't mean that we can't cross-border cooperate with them. We're doing that on Asian citrus lily and pine long pig. And that's a very good question to wrap up my discussion, because as I was mentioning to Dwayne, when we decided this is something that we need to do to get a group together, most of our very successful pest management programs of late have a huge industry and stakeholder component. Asian citrus psyllid and white long pig, we could not do that without the citrus industry assessing themselves, without homeowners understanding the importance of citrus trees in their yards, and that the disease is fatal. They won't have a tree anymore. And the industry assessing themselves and putting a priority on it. That leveraged government action and government funding. The European grapevine moth is another great example of a pest that we didn't even know was in our midst, but once we found it, it was doing some serious damage. And the industry banded together. Everybody loves wine, almost everybody loves wine. And the homeowners whose yards we had to go in to remove their grape clusters were more than welcome to allow us in to drive that pest out. Everybody loves palm trees. There's a lot of things that are successful elements of other similar pest programs that this one has in its favor. We just have to get it going and take advantage of those positive elements. Yes, sir.
If that palm weevil is not found on Phoenix galactiferous, which is agricultural crop, what are the chances of getting funding for the research similar to what happened with the western sharpshooter? Until it hit the wine grapes, there was no money available to research. So is this something with this palm?
Can you repeat the question?
The question was, if Phoenix dactylifera is not a host, what's the likelihood of getting funding to further the program element? Well, sorry, it always helps to have more stakeholders. If it's not a pest of date palms, and we hope it's not, then you really don't have much of an issue with it, except if for all other palms it would be an issue. So when a stakeholder drops out of the fight, and especially an ag stakeholder who they have a very defined economic interest in it, and they're a unique subset. It's not to say that the residential and horticulture industry doesn't have a stake in it, but when you have a commodity group, they're a little bit more unified because they have a lot more in common as opposed to all the different elements of the horticultural industry. We have a very diverse horticultural industry, and as you know, not everybody's concerned with every single plant and every single pest. So, long answer short, it would be very bad for the cause because we lose a big and influential stakeholder. But it'd be to their advantage. I don't know if they got Phoenix growing out in the arroyo here. The question was, is Phoenix that to live for a host? Our assumption is yes, it is, yeah.
Right, I suspect it may be, but
Okay.
when Canary Island palms are around, they seem to prefer the canaries. But
Okay.
you know, it's hard to know how to predict if it gets into, say, date growing areas and there's just no other palm species available for it, and they just eat them up.
Well, there's one piece of research right off the top. Host.
Right?
Challenge it with the date book. Find out once and for all.
I don't think the date industry wants to wait until,
Yeah, we're going to assume it is until we prove it otherwise.
yeah, the red
but-
palm weevil has proven to be devastating in date palm growing areas, and it likes the canaries better also, so I don't think the date industry is gonna wait and see, you know, that wouldn't be smart on our part.
Okay, good answer.
What about dates in Mexico? Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, what do we know about dates in Mexico?
So far, we don't know that the dates have been infected, but we don't know that the canaries in the area of the date growing have been infected.
What about like Saudi Arabia?
Dates in Saudi Arabia? Well, we don't have the South American palm weevil in Saudi Arabia. Right.
Yeah, but red palm weevil has been devastating in the Middle East and North Africa.
Now, our date grower from the Mexico area actually just spoke, and he said that they don't have any canaries around there either, so. But we're not gonna wait.
Yes, sir.
With the invasion of Phoenix, Robolini, almost every home in the state of California, this is a
That's a good question.
repeat the question?
With the proliferation, ample Phoenix Robolini in every Home Depot in California, a very popular landscaping plant, are they susceptible as well? Don't know if you know that yet. Lots of, and post preface. Those are also important things, I think, in nature, is like, what do they prefer? There's things they can survive on if they have to, but then there's things that they can absolutely thrive on. Those are all important things to know.
Any other questions for
David, I think on your parking lot, somebody mentioned early detection research. That could be key. Is that, I mean, these ponds might survive early detection.
And trying to make lemonade out of a lemon, because we have the bug in the country naturalized, doing research in the field is a little bit easier. Usually with quarantine pests, it has to be done in a contained research facility. There aren't that many of them around, and the space within them is limited, so that is one potential bright spot, is that with it naturalized in the area, research to answer some of these questions could be accomplished a little bit easier. Both here and across the border in Mexico, not too far away.
final question?
Thank you.